The old man used to complain every day, so it was amazing when he finally kicked the bucket, right? The old lady is so stubborn.
I gasped as I overheard Sarah's loud conversation on the phone. She was such a good girl when she was little. What happened?
Oh, old man, I was just saying stuff like hurry up and disappear or you're still alive. He was just in the way.
Imagining the pain my husband Mike went through, I could hardly breathe. Something inside me was vanishing completely.
Oh no, this is.
Sarah's smile froze when she saw Emily and me. She stammered, trying to make an excuse, but I cut her off. Could you not speak? If you're planning on talking to me out of some sense of duty, you can stop. I have no desire to talk to you. The person in front of me was no longer my daughter. My love had faded, leaving only guilt for having raised such a person. I made a firm decision and took a new step forward. My name is Viola Howard. I'm a 54-year-old housewife. Until recently, I lived happily with my husband, Mike, who is 2 years older than me. Mike, honey, rest in peace. You're not in pain anymore. It's sad, but goodbye. On the day my beloved Mike passed away, I was too stunned to cry. Instead, I cried my heart out until no tears were left during the funeral. Relatives, friends, and various people took turns comforting me. Of course, my family quietly supported me. The family I had left consisted of my only daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Tyler. Sarah is now 29. Though there were many challenges during her teenage years, I believe she has completely settled down now. She has grown into a bright, lively, and dependable woman. She no longer lives with us. Instead, she married a man named Tyler and lives in a suburban apartment. This Tyler, though younger than Sarah, is a responsible and very kind person. He helped with the funeral arrangements, which was a great relief. A kind husband, a cheerful daughter, and a helpful son-in-law. I never imagined my family would fall apart like this. Or maybe I just hadn't noticed that it had already been broken for a long time. As I recall the first signs, it feels like they date back 15 years. At the time, Sarah was in middle school. She was right in the throes of adolescence.
She's been going out a lot lately.
Mike remarked, leaning forward. I felt the same, so I saw it as a perfect chance to discuss it with him. Sarah was late again today. It had become a routine for her to come home late, well past dark. Yes, she seems influenced by an upperclassman from her club. She even dyed her hair without permission. I don't know what to do anymore. Sarah was such a good, bright, and cute girl when she was little. She had a bit of a cheeky side, but I raised her with love. Up until elementary school, she was really just an ordinary child. However, things changed when she entered middle school. Then things changed. Her friends became those who wore their uniforms sloppily, and she started to behave badly. Just the other day, I noticed she had a lot of piercings. You're not hanging out with strange people, are you? It's dangerous, you know, if something happens.
Shut up, old lady.
Such conversations became frequent. Mike was also very worried when he heard me. As more time passed, Sarah started staying out overnight without permission when she was in high school. Where have you been? I was so worried. At least call me. I couldn't help but raise my voice. It wasn't anger, but anxiety that made me unable to stay silent. However, Sarah didn't seem to care at all.
Huh? You're so annoying.
With that, she disappeared into her room. I gradually began to wear out from the stress. Mike also tried to talk to Sarah, but she just wouldn't listen. Instead, she stayed out even more to spite us for being persistent. My best friend of 20 years, Emily, invited me for tea, sensing my distress. Spending time with her was a huge relief. Maybe it's my fault for how I raised her, I muttered. Emily sighed softly. She has 2 sons, so she couldn't fully grasp the challenges of raising a daughter. But as someone who had children earlier than I did, she listened to me with understanding.
Sarah isn't a little girl anymore. It's not just about how you and Mike raised her. Remember how we were in high school? Our friends and TV had a bigger influence on us than our parents did.
Her words lightened my heart a bit. Emily was right. I never became a delinquent, but during my high school years, conversations with friends were more important than listening to my parents. Thinking about it that way, I could understand why Sarah found our worries annoying. When I got home, Mike encouraged me too.
Let's keep loving her, together. She'll understand when she grows up.
Buoyed by Emily and Mike's words, I resolved to keep believing in Sarah and continue our daily life. Sarah still remained distant and stayed out overnight. Her makeup became more flamboyant, and her nails were always glittery. She seemed to have a boyfriend, but she never introduced him to us. He probably wasn't a decent person. At the beginning of May, Sarah came home unusually early while it was still light out. By then, I had gotten used to her late returns, so her early arrival was a surprise. "Oh, you're home early. Are you having dinner here tonight?" I asked. Sarah didn't retreat to her room as usual, but seemed a bit fidgety. I wondered what was going on when she handed me something she had been hiding behind her back.
Here for Mother's Day.
I couldn't believe my eyes. She handed me a single red carnation. I never expected to get a Mother's Day gift from her. I was so overjoyed that I teared up. "Oh, thank you." Sarah giggled and then disappeared into her room. I excitedly put the flower in a vase and proudly showed it to Mike when he got home. "Look, Sarah gave me this." Mike's eyes softened as he looked at the bright red flower. I couldn't help but hope that our relationship with her would gradually improve. But that night, when I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, I noticed the light was on in Sarah's room. It was already 2 a.m. Wishing she would go to bed soon, I listened to the sounds around me and heard cheerful conversations. She seemed to be on the phone with a friend. I couldn't help but eavesdrop.
You should just work your parents to the bone until they drop. Yeah, just talking to them is a volunteer job.
I was shocked by the outrageous things I heard. Unaware that I was eavesdropping, Sarah continued boastfully.
Just a little sweet talk and you can fool them easily. I gave my mom an 88-cent flower for Mother's Day and she cried. That was funny.
The red carnation I received earlier flashed in my mind. I bit my lip and quietly walked away. The next morning, I woke up slightly earlier than usual and immediately woke up Mike. I needed to talk about Sarah's phone call from the previous night. Mike was stunned by what I told him, scratching his head and frowning.
Is she serious, or is she just trying to act tough for her friends?
His words reminded me of Sarah's shy smile when she handed me the carnation. Deep down, I wanted to believe that was her true self. Soon, Sarah came down, looking sleepy. Seeing both Mike and me staring at her, she tilted her head in confusion.
What's up? Good morning.
Seeing her like that, Mike and I couldn't help but smile and relax. We decided to believe in Sarah's sincerity. 10 years later, in his mid-50s, my beloved Mike fell ill. Despite being newly married, Sarah actively helped with his care. It made me happy, thinking Mike was right about her understanding as she grew older. However, Mike didn't seem pleased with Sarah's visits. Curious, I asked Sarah about it.
Dad seems to think he's being a burden to me.
I see, I thought. Taking Sarah's words at face value, I ended up scolding Mike. It's okay to rely on Sarah. Let her be filial after all the struggles we've had. When I smiled, Mike looked sad and unconvinced. After about a year of battling illness, my beloved Mike passed away. He was only 56 years old. I was heartbroken. After the funeral, Sarah held my hand.
Why don't you live with us? You must be lonely alone. We're family. We should support each other.
I gladly accepted the offer. Since Sarah and Tyler's apartment was small, we decided they would move into the house Mike and I shared. We started by clearing out the house. Every item was filled with memories, making it hard to part with things. Sarah and Tyler often helped.
This is nostalgic.
This is nice. We can use it.
Watching the young couple talk about the items was endearing. I felt a strong sense of family. As life slowly returned to normal, I went to my part-time job. Sarah came over that morning, so I left her to look after the house. After work, I stepped outside to find it pouring rain. According to a colleague checking the weather app, it was a sudden shower. Without an umbrella and having to walk to the station, I decided to wait out the rain. Sorry, I'll be late because I'm waiting for the rain to stop. I called Sarah, who should have been waiting at home. Then Sarah replied cheerfully,
Sure, I'll cook dinner while I wait. Tyler's coming over tonight, so how about we have a family barbecue at home?
I was grateful she was even taking care of the household chores. Even though Mike had passed away, I felt fortunate to have been blessed with a new family in Sarah and her husband. As I waited for the rain to stop at the entrance of my workplace, a familiar car pulled up.
Viola, I was just on my way to your house. Perfect timing. Hop in.
It was Emily in the driver's seat. She happened to be passing by and offered me a ride. I'll get home much earlier than planned. Thank you, Emily. We talked about our lives as we drove. When I told her about living with my daughter and her husband and our plans to move in together permanently, Emily was genuinely happy for me. Returning home with Emily was wonderful until it was summer, and the windows were open with only screens. As we got out of the car, Sarah's loud phone conversation hit our ears.
Old man used to complain every day, so it was amazing when he finally kicked the bucket. Old lady is so stubborn.
I gasped. I stopped in my tracks and grabbed Emily's arm. Emily, also tense, held her breath. We slowly approached the window.
Oh, old man, I was just like, hurry up and die already. Or are you still alive? He was just in the way.
I was horrified. I realized those cruel words were directed at Mike. So that's why he didn't want Sarah to care for him. I hated myself for not noticing sooner.
Yeah, my mom's family is super rich even though they live in the middle of nowhere. Totally want it, right? So just put up with her for a while. Once we get that inheritance, we'll make her disappear. How do we get her to give us an advance on the inheritance, Tyler?
I felt the blood drain from my face. Sarah and Tyler. They weren't a beloved family. In that moment, I decided to sever all ties with them. The love I felt just minutes ago seemed like a lie. I didn't know love could vanish so completely. So that's what you really think. The phrase, shaking with anger, doesn't seem to be an exaggeration. I slowly opened the screen door from the outside. Sarah's smile froze when she saw Emily and me.
Oh no, this is.
Sarah started making excuses, almost dropping her phone. I watched her coldly. I had thought of her as a kind and caring daughter. I believed she had outgrown her rebellious phase, but it was all a delusion. I couldn't forgive myself for not seeing through her. If I had noticed sooner, Mike wouldn't have suffered. I was overwhelmed with sadness and anger. I cut off Sarah's excuses. Could you not speak? If you're planning on talking to me out of some sense of duty, you can stop. I have no desire to talk to you. Using formal language showed the distance in my heart. I signaled Emily, and we marched into the house together. Inside, I saw Sarah's bag and Tyler's tools, items they had brought in. I grabbed them and threw them out the window one by one.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
She protests, grabbing at me, but I resist with all my might. While Emily, who's bigger than me, tries to push Sarah out the front door, I finish throwing everything out the window. Sarah, still hurling insults, continues to struggle with Emily. Our eyes meet as Sarah glares at me, and I can't help but voice my resentment. Even when you turned delinquent, even when you talked back, even when you yelled over the phone to your friends that parents were a nuisance. Despite all that, I tried to believe in the child I gave birth to, but it was truly in vain. If I had cut ties sooner, I wouldn't have caused grief for my beloved Mike. I feel my cheeks burning, and as I casually wipe them, I notice my hand is wet. Apparently, I had been crying.
It was just a joke, geez.
I felt a tremendous dislike for her half-smile and twitching face. She broke free from Emily, and with all my strength, I shook off her hand that tried to touch my shoulder. "Don't touch me," I shouted loudly. In the commotion, Sarah dropped her phone. The call is still connected, and the name Tyler is displayed on the screen. I picked up the phone and, with all my strength, threw it. With what I considered a perfect pitch, the phone flew out the window and landed on the road in front of the house.
No, my phone.
Sarah screamed and ran to retrieve it. In the meantime, I closed all the windows, locked them, and secured the front door with the chain.
Hey, doesn't Sarah have a spare key? Won't she bring that rough-looking husband of hers?
Emily's words made me freeze. Tyler is obviously a former delinquent, and the two of us, women in our 50s, wouldn't stand a chance against him physically. Following Emily's suggestion, I sought help from those around us. Neighbors and Emily's sons came rushing over, and we decided to stay together. Naturally, I also decided to stop living with Sarah and her husband. But that's not all. I've resolved to leave this house and move far away. I want to go somewhere they can't reach. I never want to see them again. I want to move to a place where we won't run into each other by chance. So, I first call a buying service, not a moving company, with the help of my friends. The buyers couldn't come immediately, so I first asked my nearby friends and relatives for help. As a parting gift, please take anything you like, whether it's dishes, appliances, anything but my husband's ashes and memorial tablet. Few people could come that day, but once I mentioned that items would be given on a first-come, first-served basis, some rushed over. I also called out to the neighbors who were present. Feel free to take anything you like, even the TV or refrigerator. I'm starting fresh with all new things. I pack valuables that I don't want to be taken into a travel bag. The neighbors happily take away items like bookshelves and a relatively new vacuum cleaner. As night falls, relatives and friends arrive in droves. They eagerly choose nicer pots and Mike's golf equipment, asking, "Are you sure?" with delighted expressions. I'm glad to see them happy, much better than letting the heartless Sarah and her husband take them. As people are busy packing the mementos, a loud car pulls up outside. As expected, Sarah has returned with Tyler. They probably came to beg for forgiveness. Through the window, I see Sarah holding what looks like a cake box as a peace offering. Thinking that cake could make up for everything is beyond ridiculous. The two seem bewildered by the number of cars parked around our house and the many people coming and going. I stand up and head to the front door to chase them away.
What the hell is this? No way, that bag is the one I wanted.
Sarah turns pale at the sight of the appliances and my branded bags being taken out. Tyler stands stunned in the doorway.
Thief! Thief!
Sarah tried to grab the couple carrying the TV, but everyone stopped her. Everyone here had heard about Sarah and Tyler's misdeeds from me and Emily. No one was going to listen to them now. Sarah was still screaming, "Thief! Thief!" But to me, she and Tyler were the real thieves, stealing my time and love. Get out! Don't touch anything in this house. Everything here belongs to me and Mike's loved ones. There's nothing here for heartless people like you. I shouted with all my might. But Sarah and Tyler didn't leave. In fact, they tried to come inside, so I decided to take the final step. I called for the people waiting in the other room with Emily, John, Mary. Seeing the people who came out, Sarah's face twisted in fear. Tyler's eyes widened, and his mouth dropped open. It was because the people standing there were Tyler's parents. Since they were from her husband's family, Sarah knew them, of course. I found their contact through a Christmas card and explained the situation over the phone, and they rushed over. I felt the need to apologize for raising such a daughter. But Tyler's parents were sympathetic. Apparently, they had also shed many tears over Tyler's behavior. Tyler's father, who had come to the front door, approached him silently with a fierce expression. He grabbed Tyler's arm firmly.
Ouch. Let go.
Tyler was dragged out by his father. His father worked in construction and was very strong, leaving Tyler unable to resist. Tyler's screams were met with silent determination as his father marched him out. Sarah was also forced out by several people. My relatives and Mike's relatives took the lead and were able to drive her away with words. "Leave now. There's nothing here for you. You already took the cash from Mike's inheritance as severance. Don't come back. Even if you do, you won't be let in. You're nothing to us now. Got it?" I slammed the door and collapsed to the floor. No matter how much I hated her, she was still my daughter. Regret over raising such a child brought tears to my eyes. Emily, who had come closer, gently patted my back. After that, Sarah and Tyler never came to the house again. Tyler's parents kept a close watch on them. They even monitored Sarah as their daughter-in-law, filling me with guilt. I sold the remaining belongings to a buying service and entrusted the sale of the house to a real estate agent. Aside from Mike's memorial tablet, all my belongings fit into 2 travel bags. How light it felt. The empty house, once familiar, now looked strange. I felt oddly refreshed. I decided to stay temporarily at my parents' house and look for a new place. On the way to my parents' house, my phone rang. It was Sarah. I didn't feel like talking, but I answered the call for a moment. Instead of words, I heard sobbing. No more guilt trips. I ended the call with just that. Instead of feeling pain at my child's crying, I felt only disgust. I never imagined that the day would come when I'd feel this way about the child I gave birth to. When I arrived at my parents' house, they greeted me with somber expressions. I would now live in the room where I had spent my childhood. I cried alone, quietly. I cried all night and watched the sunrise without having slept at all. The brightening sky outside the window was so beautiful, reminding me of the sunrise I saw on the mountaintop the day Mike proposed to me. Mike and I used to love hiking when we were young. The sunrise that day felt like Mike was pushing me forward. I decided to move far away without telling Sarah my new address so that she can't visit me. My parents are now my only family. Sarah, Tyler, and any future grandchildren are strangers to me. Although I had made up my mind, Sarah wasn't solely dependent on me. She still had both sets of grandparents, my parents and Mike's parents. After I left, Sarah, now free to move around, first sought help from Mike's parents, who I considered my in-laws. However, having heard everything from me, Mike's parents were furious and drove her away. Even though she was their precious granddaughter, they couldn't forgive her for the cruel words she had said to their ailing son. It was understandable that they didn't want to help her after learning the truth. Hearing this from Mike's parents, my parents and I prepared ourselves. We figured Sarah's next move would be to come here. Worried about my fiery temper, Emily rushed over to support me. It was 2 days after receiving the call from Mike's parents. While discussing future plans, we heard the familiar roar of Tyler's car engine. There's no doubt about it, that's the sound of Tyler's car. I didn't expect them to arrive so soon, but it saved us the trouble of waiting for days. We didn't open the door, and instead had my mother handle them via the intercom. Sarah, looking a bit gaunt, spoke through the intercom.
Grandma, It's Sarah. Mom misunderstood and we had a terrible fight. Please help me make up with her.
Hearing her say, "I misunderstood," nearly made me explode with anger. My sadness was swept away by the intense rage. Emily tried to calm me down as my face turned red with anger.
Viola, calm down. Let's go.
I stood in the entryway, breathing heavily, waiting for them. Sarah, unaware that I was inside, probably waited for the door to unlock. On my signal, Emily swiftly opened the door.
Grandma, Mom.
Sarah, smiling as she tried to enter, froze when she saw me. It was my parents' house, so she should have expected me to be there. "Get out." As I shouted, Emily slammed the door shut and locked it. Sarah and Tyler panicked on the other side, but I didn't care. I yelled loudly enough for them to hear clearly through the door. I no longer have a daughter. Anyone who tells her sick father to disappear is not the precious, beloved daughter I once loved. You are strangers to me now. Get out. There was one thing I didn't say, but kept to myself. That sentence was, "I wish I had never given birth to you." No matter how much I felt it, I knew as a parent that it was the one thing I could never say. How much time passed. After a while, the sound of the engine started again, and the two of them left. I instinctively knew that I would never see them again. I've lost everything. Mike and Sarah. I wonder how Sarah will feel about today when she becomes a mother, when her child hits the rebellious phase, and when she grows old. Emily hugged me as I collapsed and cried. My parents, also tearful, comforted me. Even though I had to cut ties with Sarah and Tyler, I was relieved to know I still had people who cared about me.
Hello? Oh, it's awful. Sarah and Tyler got divorced. They seemed so in love, but I guess it was all so shallow.
Later, I received this news from Emily. She seemed surprised, but I wasn't at all. There was no way a relationship between two self-centered liars could last. Sarah had been shunned by relatives and was now completely alone. She had worked at nightclubs for a while, but it didn't last, and now she was drifting from job to job. She might want to escape the judgmental eyes of her hometown, but she didn't have the money to move right away after the divorce and cutting ties with her family. It seemed she would be facing hard times for a while.
Sarah was such a beauty, but now she's a mess. Without makeup, she doesn't even have eyebrows. She's like a different person.
Even hearing this, I felt no pity. I only wished she would suffer for a long time. I realized that I had finally moved on for real. Thanks for letting me know, but I don't need any more updates. She's no longer my daughter. I should have realized it sooner. Do you think if I had raised her differently, things would have turned out better? Emily pondered my question for a moment. Then she spoke carefully.
I'm sorry, I don't know. That's something only Mike might answer. If you ever see him again, ask him. He loved you so much. No matter how long you live, I'm sure he'll be there to welcome you on the other side.
Her words, understanding me so well, were comforting. I thanked her sincerely. Since the encounter at my parents' house, I hadn't heard directly from Sarah. I had blocked her number, and she hadn't tried to contact Mike's parents either. I was sure we would never have any contact again. except maybe when one of us crossed the Rainbow Bridge. I heard that Tyler had also left town. As a result of Tyler's parents being genuinely furious about the recent events, he was sent to work at a distant construction site where he had to live on site. Rumor had it that he wouldn't be back for at least 10 years. I hoped he would suffer and reflect on his actions too. Hey, where should we live next? I want a place with a beautiful view. I spoke to Mike's portrait. His smiling photo gazed at me with the same gentle eyes. Even though I wanted to move far away, I couldn't find the perfect place, and ended up living at my parents' house for over 6 months. During that time, something surprising happened. I received a letter from Mike. It was a letter that Mike had entrusted to his parents while he was still alive, with instructions to give it to me once things had settled down. They delivered it to my parents' house, explaining that the delay was due to the chaos caused by Sarah. Oh, Mike. Seeing his familiar handwriting made my eyes well up. The slightly shaky lines indicated he had written it when his illness was advanced. The letter was filled with Mike's love.
Viola, thank you for walking with me until the end. I wasn't a perfect husband or father, but I was always happy because you were there. I want you to enjoy the rest of your life for yourself. Don't let anyone hold you back. Leave behind what you need to. I wish you happiness and bright days. I love you.
I read and reread the letter, tracing the words with my fingers. As I did, memories of my time with Mike came flooding back. Despite his illness, Mike had left me many fond memories, even though there wasn't much of an inheritance. I know. I want to climb the mountain we climbed together when we were newlyweds. Suddenly inspired, I started preparing for the trip. I quit my part-time job to move, so I have plenty of time now. Luckily, my parents are quite well off, so I don't have to worry about living expenses for now. Currently, I'm on an overseas trip with Emily, reminiscing about the trip to Switzerland I took with Mike in our younger days. We arrived in Switzerland and took the mountain train to the summit station. In the unchanged scenery, I feel a sense of renewal as the wind blows. I've been thinking about relocating somewhere with my parents. How about Vermont? There are a lot of people who have moved to places like Burlington, and it seems like a fun place to live. I share my dreams while enjoying the cool Swiss breeze. Maybe it's because I'm far from the US, but the air seems different here. Emily chuckles and responds,
Where I live is pretty nice too, and it's cool there. There are quite a few older folks, so your parents might find it comfortable.
She lives in the highlands of Colorado. I can imagine it's a quiet and nice place. I'm excited about the idea of living either by myself or with my parents, and where we might settle down. I'll discuss it well with my parents and make sure they'll be happy. I want to do a lot for my parents, much more than I have until now, and I want to cherish my friends. Maybe start working part-time again. The sunrise viewed from the mountain hut is beautiful, filling me with a sense of a bright future. Following Mike's letter, I believe there will be shining days of happiness ahead as I continue to live my life.